The broken ship and first contact Captain Zara Chen had seen many strange things during her 15 years commanding deep space survey missions, but nothing quite like the massive vessel drifting silently near Jupiter's storm-racked surface. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of her exploration vessel Endeavour, and its design was unlike anything in human records. Sweeping organic curves flowed along its hull like frozen waves, constructed from what appeared to be a dark, crystalline material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Captain, I'm reading minimal power signatures," reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. "Whatever it is, it's barely functioning. Hull integrity appears compromised in several sections." Zara studied the readings carefully. First contact protocols were clear about approaching unknown alien vessels, but those protocols assumed the aliens were alive and potentially hostile. This ship looked dead in space, a derelict waiting to be claimed by Jupiter's gravitational pull. Still, her instruments detected something that made her pause. "Torres, are you certain about those life sign readings?" she asked, moving closer to examine the data herself. The young officer nodded, his expression troubled. "Just one, Captain, but it's massive. Whatever's aboard that ship is at least 12 feet tall and weighs probably 800 pounds. The readings are unlike anything I've seen before, but the biosignature is definitely alive." Zara made her decision quickly. If there was a survivor aboard that vessel, she couldn't simply leave them to die. Her crew of 25 were all experienced, explorers who had signed up for exactly this kind of situation. They were scientists, engineers, and explorers first, not soldiers. "Prepare a boarding party," she ordered. "Full environmental suits, emergency medical supplies, and translation computers. If we're making first contact, we're going to do it right." 3 hours later, Zara found herself standing in the airlocked docking bay of the alien vessel. The atmosphere was breathable but thin, with unusual electromagnetic properties that made their equipment behave strangely. The corridors were vast, clearly designed for beings much larger than humans, with walls that seemed to pulse with faint internal light, following the life sign readings. The boarding party made their way through what appeared to be living quarters, work areas, and storage compartments. Everything was sized for giants, but the craftsmanship was breathtaking. Every surface showed careful attention to detail, with flowing designs that seemed both functional and artistic. They found him in what might have been the ship's central hub, a vast chamber with crystalline walls that rose high above their heads. Isahn stood nearly 12 feet tall, his body seemingly carved from living crystal that refracted light in impossible ways. His 4 arms moved in slow, graceful gestures as he worked at a control panel that responded to his touch with gentle chimes. When he noticed the humans, he didn't show fear or aggression, just a deep, profound sadness that seemed to emanate from his very being. The first challenge was communication. Isahn's voice was like the sound of wind through crystal caves, beautiful but completely incomprehensible. However, Dr. Sarah Kim, the team's xenolinguist, quickly realized that Isahn was highly intelligent and understood the basic principles of mathematics and physics. Using the ship's holographic displays, they began with simple numerical concepts, gradually building toward more complex ideas. The breakthrough came when Isahn displayed a star chart showing his journey. The hologram revealed that he was from a system nearly 50 light-years away, part of a peaceful species called the Karathi, who had mastered space travel centuries ago. His ship had been on a routine exploration mission when a cascade failure in the navigation systems had left him stranded. That had been 43 years ago. 43 years, Zara whispered to her team. He's been alone out here for decades. Through painstaking communication using mathematics, basic physics, and increasingly sophisticated visual displays, they learned Isahn's story. The Korathi were master engineers who built ships to last millennia, but this particular vessel had encountered a quantum storm that had damaged its navigation crystals beyond repair. Without those crystals, the ship could maintain life support and basic functions, but it couldn't plot a course home or even send a distress signal across interstellar distances. Isahn had not given up hope for the first 20 years, but as time passed and no rescue came, he had resigned himself to dying alone among the stars. His people would have moved on, assuming he was lost forever. The Korathi lived for centuries, but even they couldn't search the entire galaxy for one missing ship. What struck the humans most powerfully was not Isahn's advanced technology or alien physiology, but his profound loneliness and dignity in the face of what seemed like certain death. He had continued maintaining his ship, caring for the small ecosystem of crystalline plants in his quarters, and even composing what appeared to be poetry in flowing scripts that decorated the walls. Dr. Martinez, the chief engineer, studied the damaged navigation systems with fascination. The technology was centuries ahead of human science, but the basic principles were understandable. The quantum crystals that had been damaged were incredibly sophisticated, capable of calculating hyperspace coordinates across vast distances. However, their molecular structure had been disrupted by exotic radiation, leaving them useless. Captain, Martinez said quietly, pulling Zara aside. I think we might be able to help him. The idea was audacious. Earth had recently discovered that certain rare earth elements, when properly processed, could create crude but functional quantum resonance matrices. They weren't nearly as sophisticated as Isahn's crystals, but they might be sufficient to get his ship operational enough to reach his home system. The challenge was convincing Isahn to trust them. Through their developing communication system, they explained that, while humans were young in terms of space travel, they were remarkably good at improvising solutions with limited resources. It was a trait that had carried them from caves to the stars in just a few thousand years. Isahn's response was immediate and profound. The crystalline being actually wept, his tears forming small prisms that caught the light beautifully. In his culture, crying was apparently reserved for moments of overwhelming joy or relief. He had not expected to ever see another living being again, let alone receive an offer of help from an entirely unknown species. The next several days were a whirlwind of activity. The human engineers worked alongside Isahn to understand his ship's systems, while he marveled at their ability to think creatively about problems. Where Korathi engineering was elegant and precise, built to last forever, human engineering was adaptable and resourceful, designed to work with whatever materials were available. Isahn was particularly fascinated by human tools and techniques. His people had perfected their technology over millennia, but humans were constantly inventing new ways to solve problems. When Martinez couldn't find the right component for a repair, she simply fabricated one using materials from the Endeavor. When Dr. Kim needed a better way to communicate complex concepts, she invented a new symbolic language that combined human mathematics with Korathi artistic expressions. Your species is remarkable, Isahn told them once. Their translation system had become sophisticated enough for complex conversations. The Korathi perfect things over centuries. Humans improve things every day. Both approaches have value, but yours creates possibilities we would never consider. The cultural exchange flowed both ways. Isahn shared not just his technology, but stories of the galaxy beyond Earth's solar system. He spoke of vast cooperative civilizations that had eliminated war and poverty, of worlds where different species worked together to explore the mysteries of the universe, and of art and science that spanned multiple galaxies. For the humans, it was a revelation. They had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. And now they learned that not only were there countless other species, but many of them were peaceful, collaborative, and welcoming to newcomers. The human solution and unexpected bonds, the work of repairing Isahn's navigation system, proved to be far more complex than anyone had initially imagined. But it also became something neither species had expected, a true collaboration that pushed both human and Karathi science into new territories. Dr. Martinez and her engineering team had been working around the clock for a week, trying to understand how Isahn's quantum crystals functioned at the molecular level. The Karathi technology was so advanced that it seemed almost magical, but Martinez had built her reputation on the principle that any technology, no matter how advanced, followed consistent physical laws. The key, she explained to Captain Chen, during one of their daily briefings, is that these crystals don't just calculate hyperspace coordinates. They actually exist partially in hyperspace themselves, which is why they can process information across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The breakthrough came when Dr. Kim made an unexpected connection while studying Karathi poetry that Isahn had shared with them. She noticed that the mathematical relationships in his artistic expressions matched certain quantum equations they had been working with. When she showed this to Martinez, the engineer realized that the Karathi didn't separate art and science the way humans did. Their entire approach to technology was based on harmonic relationships that were simultaneously functional and beautiful. He's not just an engineer, Kim explained to the team. In Karathi culture, engineers are also artists, mathematicians, and poets. Their technology works because it's designed to be in harmony with the natural laws of the universe. This insight changed everything. Instead of trying to replicate Karathi technology exactly, the human team began working on creating hybrid systems that combined human adaptability with Karathi principles of harmony. They used rare earth elements from their ship's stores, but processed them according to equations derived from Isahn's poetry. Isahn was amazed by the human approach, where his people would spend decades perfecting a single component. The humans were willing to try dozens of different approaches, learning from each failure and building on each success. Their solutions weren't as elegant as traditional Karathi engineering, but they were remarkably effective. Your species sees every problem as an opportunity to learn something new, he told Zara during one of their conversations. The Karathi have forgotten how to think this way. We became so focused on perfection that we stopped exploring possibilities. The repair work also revealed something unexpected about human physiology that surprised Isahn. The quantum fields generated by the navigation crystals required precise calibration, but human nervous systems were naturally sensitive to these fields in a way that Karathi physiology was not. Dr. Torres, working directly with the crystal matrices, could sense minute variations that didn't show up on any instruments. It's like humans evolved to interface with quantum technology, Isahn mused. Perhaps your species' future lies not just in space travel, but in helping other civilizations solve problems they cannot solve alone. As the repairs neared completion, the relationship between the humans and Isahn deepened beyond mere cooperation. The Karathi began sharing not just technical knowledge, but cultural treasures, music that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, art forms that changed based on the viewer's emotional state, and stories of civilizations that spanned entire galactic clusters. In return, the humans shared their own cultural achievements, but also something Isahn found even more valuable: their perspective on growth and change. Human civilization had transformed completely multiple times throughout history, always adapting to new challenges and opportunities. The Karathi, for all their achievements, had become somewhat static over their long lifespans. "We have built perfect cities that have remained unchanged for 1,000 years, Isahn confided to Zara. But you humans, you rebuild your cities every few generations, always trying to make them better. Perhaps we have confused perfection with stagnation." The moment of truth came 3 weeks after their first meeting. The hybrid navigation system was complete, cobbled together from human rare earth elements, Karathi harmonic principles, and entirely new mathematical frameworks that neither species could have developed alone. The crystals weren't as beautiful as the originals, but they pulsed with a steady light that indicated proper function. Captain Jun and her crew gathered in the crystalline chamber as Isahn activated the navigation system for the first time in over 4 decades. The ship's walls began to glow with flowing patterns of light, and the gentle hum of properly functioning machinery filled the air. The star charts appeared in perfect 3-dimensional detail, showing not just Isahn's home system, but optimal routes that would take him safely across 50 light-years of space. The Karathi's emotional response was overwhelming. He stood perfectly still for several minutes, his crystalline body refracting the light from his ship's systems into rainbow patterns that danced across the walls. When he finally moved, it was to approach each human individually, performing what appeared to be a traditional gesture of gratitude that involved pressing his 4 palms together and bowing deeply. "You have given me my life back," he said, his translated words carrying profound emotion. "But more than that, you have shown me a new way of thinking about problems and possibilities. This gift will change not just my life, but my entire civilization." But Isahn was not finished. He had spent the past weeks not just working on repairs, but preparing gifts for the humans who had saved him. Using his ship's fabrication systems, he had created devices that would revolutionize human technology: clean energy generators based on harmonic resonance, medical scanners that could detect and treat diseases at the quantum level, and communication systems that could transmit messages across interstellar distances instantly. "These technologies are not advanced by Karathi standards," he explained, "but they will serve your species well as you begin to explore beyond your solar system. More importantly, I have prepared something else." The something else was a complete database of peaceful civilizations throughout the galaxy, along with contact protocols and safe routes for human ships. It was essentially a roadmap for joining the galactic community as a respected member species. "The galaxy has been waiting for humanity without realizing it," Isahn told them. "Your ability to find creative solutions to impossible problems is exactly what many civilizations need. You will be welcome wherever you go." As preparations for Isahn's departure began, both sides realized that something profound had occurred. This wasn't just a rescue mission or a technological exchange. It was the beginning of a new kind of relationship between species, one based on mutual respect, collaborative problem-solving, and shared growth. Isahn's final gift was perhaps the most important. He promised to return to Earth within a standard year, bringing with him representatives of several peaceful civilizations who were eager to meet humanity. The gift that had started with human compassion and ingenuity would ripple outward, eventually connecting Earth to a vast community of species that spanned the galaxy. On the day of his departure, Isahn stood one last time in his ship's central chamber, surrounded by the humans who would become his friends and collaborators. The hybrid navigation crystals glowed steadily, ready to carry him home after more than 4 decades of isolation. "Thank you," he said simply, the translated words carrying the weight of languages that had no equivalent for the depth of gratitude he felt. "You have shown me that the universe is still full of wonders I had never imagined." Captain Chen smiled, her eyes bright with tears she wasn't ashamed to shed. "Thank you for letting us help. You've given us something more valuable than technology. You've given us hope for what we can become." As Isahn's ship engaged its hyperspace drive and disappeared among the stars, the crew of the Endeavour knew that they had witnessed the beginning of humanity's true journey into the galaxy. They had saved one life, but in doing so, they had opened a path for their entire species to find its place among the stars.